Good afternoon and welcome. It's the Joel Natale Show. We are live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on YouTube and Facebook. We're having a crucial conversations that Erie needs. And today we're talking about the family business. And I'm glad to have with us here in studio from the Center for Family Business at Penn State Behrend, Dr. Christopher Harben. Good to see you, Doc. How are you?
Hi, Joel. I'm a little bit afraid with that intro now.
I can't help myself, you know. I'm thinking of Michael Corleone, you know. So, no, I mean, this is great. The Center for Family Business now got to be 3 to 4 years, right?
Almost five.
Almost five.
Years old, right. From the time we started having the conversations about putting it together, I think officially probably been open with members for four years. Right.
And let's talk about, you know, kind of the basics here. Why did you do it? Why is this? And this is a movement that's happening across the country. What are the felt needs? What are the key performance indicators and so on?
That's a great question. First of all, just to start, there are family business centers across the country. We're a part of a network of them, and we communicate with them all the time. But there wasn't anything like this in this region. So when the idea came up, we started thinking, well, there's really kind of this information desert in Northwest Pennsylvania to Cleveland to Buffalo down to Pittsburgh. There just wasn't anything like it, where we were concerned about whether or not family businesses had access to information, to training, to programming, to networking, such that would help them sustain themselves from one generation to the next. We were seeing family businesses just closing because, you know, there wasn't enough kids to take over, and family businesses thought that was the only option. Was if I didn't have a kid to take over, I didn't have a kid that was interested in taking over, what are we going to do? We just got to sell. Mm-hmm. And there's always someone interested in buying. There's just not always someone interested in buying that's also interested in keeping them in Northwest Pennsylvania.
Right. It occurs to me that before the Center for Family Business, the only resource might be like the chamber, you know, kind of more of a general business knowledge thing. Mm-hmm. But there's something special about family business, and especially for the kind of the preferred outcomes that you're after, right?
Well, yeah. First of all, we are in an area where there is an awful lot of access to resources and information out there. You know, for example, I mean, not only the chamber you mentioned, but the Beehive.
Yeah.
That really incorporates all the universities in the area, the library, and Allegheny College. So for entrepreneurs, there's some options, but there isn't anything that's specifically saying, hey, if you're a family business, if you started off with the patriarch or the matriarch, there isn't anyone that's dealing directly with those issues. They could work around it. And it's important to understand we're not a consulting organization. So we're not necessarily providing consulting to our members, but what we try to do is be a conduit to those resources that exist. Sometimes we work with the Innovation Beehive. Sometimes we'll work with accounting firms or law firms or financial firms to be able to put on programming that help. But we just look at ourselves as this is an important conduit. And really, if I wanted spoiler alert, this is everything that we ever want anyone to know about the Center for Family Business. We want family businesses to ask the questions they need to ask before they are in a situation where it's too late to ask. Mm-hmm. They just have to do something.
When you're talking about family business as opposed to kind of a more corporate entity, is it about governance necessarily? Is it operations? Is it access to capital? Or is it like just all of the above, right?
That's another great question. Governance is one of those things that family businesses often struggle with. So if you think about the genesis of a family business, I always talk, all family businesses start off not being a family business. Someone has an idea.
It's a dude, yeah.
It's someone. It's an entrepreneur, right? It might be a young couple. We've had people that started meaderies as a husband and wife and said, okay, so now what do we do going forward? We might have little kids. A lot of times, they're not thinking in terms of, ultimately, I want this to be a family business. I want this to be an asset for my business. So it starts off non-family. Mm-hmm. As it grows, though, what typically happens, and this is fairly typical even with a traditional entrepreneur business, is that the entrepreneur, the leader of the business, gets to the point where their skill set stops providing growth. They've reached their limit. And now maybe they have the next gen coming up with new ideas, but the first real problem is, how do I integrate those new ideas from the next generation into the existing leadership? This is a fairly common thing. You started off the session with talking about crucial conversations.
Mm-hmm.
If your dad's your boss or your mom's your boss, and you can see that they don't have the skill sets to continue to grow the business, how do you say that? Mom, Dad, you really don't know what you're doing anymore. That's generally not something that you talk about over dinner if you want to be able to finish the dinner.
Right? It's true. I mean, I can't even imagine, because they said we started this from scratch. We worked 80-hour weeks to do this. And
I remember when I was
you
changing your diaper. Why are you telling me this?
Yes.
I mean, my own father, this is something that's fairly typical of parents. I started off my career in financial services. I started talking to my dad about his retirement plan. He says, that's none of your business. None of your business. and that's true. But if you want your family to be part of the business, there has to be those communications. So that's sort of the first rough patch that businesses go through. I know the question was about governance, but at some point, what ends up happening is now you need someone from outside the family. How do you incorporate advice from outside the family? It might be a professional advisor like a CPA or an attorney that can give you some legal advice. Particularly now when you have people that are exporting so much, they have to be concerned about what the tariffs are, how they're going to impact their business. They need advice rather than just trying to wing it. But one of the first things we recommend is getting an advisory board. Finding some people you trust, creating this board that you can bounce ideas off of. It's unofficial. The board doesn't necessarily have power over the business. It's not what we would call a fiduciary board. Mm-hmm. That's usually the first step. But ultimately, what helps is when they do get to that point where they have a fiduciary board. So you have the leadership of the company. The fiduciary board, or the actual board, actually helps prepare the next generation. They can come up with policies to say, hey, look, if Junior 3 generations from now wants to take a role in this company, here's what they have to do. And you create those things. But this is the conversations we have with a lot of our members, because we have members at all different stages. We have members that are 5 generations, over 120 years old.
That's what I was saying. Like, you can have a family business that is massive, hundreds of employees, and like you say, 5 generations old, and you're just trying to, navigate the lineage. I mean, I think Johnson & Johnson's still a family company, and they employ thousands, right?
Well, you can also have, and this is more of our clients aren't those Johnson & Johnsons, right? I mean, Northwest Pennsylvania, we don't have huge family businesses. However, I was just talking to one the other day where they have like 8 full-time employees, but 100 seasonal employees. And as they're going through their day-to-day operations, they're dealing with all those same complicated things that a large business would be, but they're doing it with fewer people. And they're doing it with the wrapper of the family relations around them that can sometimes be a hindrance. And sometimes it's an advantage, because depending on my relationship, if you're my dad and I'm talking to you, maybe we have a great relationship. But I was talking to one this morning who said, I can't talk to my dad, but I could talk to my mom. So the joke I always make is that the problem with family business is often not the business.
Right. Wow. So this is what is the felt need, kind of the proposition for the reason for a Center for Family Business. And now we're talking about gathering folks, being able to be effective communications and do some effective learning through the Family Business Conference. Tell us how last year's went for you guys.
Last year's was really successful. We had great keynote speakers that caused an awful lot of conversation. We had great breakout sessions, hosted at our campus. People are still talking about it. And again, the focus then was about creating conversations or questions that weren't going to come up otherwise. We didn't have a particular theme last year. It was the first time doing it, so it was basically our first family business conference. Mm-hmm. It was really about the entrepreneurship of family business. So we were just talking about how do people even start a family business. One of our keynote speakers wrote a book that was really focused on kind of what I talked about a moment ago. Is a lot of family businesses don't start. I mean, none of them start as a family business. But his point was you have to be kind of meaningful, proactive, thoughtful about, hey, this could be a family business. Junior is a year old, and he has no idea that I'm doing this, but I want it to be something that Junior is prepared to take on if he's ready. So it has to be more purposeful. That was his point.
Sure.
Last year also, one of our keynote speakers was the son of the owner of the Cincinnati Reds, which was kind of an interesting story because he was the grandson of the person that founded Chiquita Brands and Minute Maid.
Wow. Yeah.
So here you have someone who's next gen in a very well-known business family, had to cut his own kind of path. He's not directly involved with the Reds, but he has roles with the Reds organization, with the foundation, and he has now moved into advising family businesses. So he's leveraging all this experience because one of the stories he talked about was his grandfather started the Chiquita Brands and went broke and wasn't thoughtful about how he was going to do things and really ended up, not having a lot to pass on. And so through hard work, his dad was able to overcome that with the help of his mom. It was a really interesting story. I think the most powerful thing about a conference like this is really those personal stories. Mm-hmm. Our business owners, our members are inundated with notes on email, which is advice. Do this, do this, do this. There's no shortage of family business newsletters and magazines. But my observation is they resonate most when they can talk to someone face to face and hear their personal story, and then they realize, that's pretty much what I went through. I have that same knucklehead in my family that we're struggling with, or we're having that same difficult conversation right now. And it energizes them. It makes them feel like they're not alone.
Wow. And that's the beauty of what's this opportunity coming up next month for the Family Business Conference. Let's go to our break, and then we'll talk about what's coming up here because you've moved the event to the Behrend Convention Center. So that means we're gearing up for some growth here. I mean, that's
trying to. Right.
That's really amazing. We're talking to Dr. Christopher Harben here from Penn State Behrend. It's a Joel Natale show on Talk Erie, 19 minutes after 4 o'clock. Talking family business here on the Joel Natale Show on this Monday. And Dr. Christopher Harben from Penn State Behrend's Center for Family Business is with us here. And the Family Business Conference coming up here October 8th and 9th at the Bayfront Convention Center. Like I said, it looks like you're steeling yourself for a lot more folks coming and being involved. I mean, this is a regional approach, right? I mean, we're going deep into Northwest PA and the tri-state.
Right. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, there was really this information desert relative to family business centers. There has since been one that's developed in Cleveland, but their approach is a lot different than ours. But we do have a lot of involvement from the Cleveland area and Pittsburgh area primarily. Like to reach out to Buffalo. Haven't had a whole lot of stickiness from that just yet. But I mean, I think we have enough people from Pittsburgh and the Cleveland area that we're so easy to get to. And that's really, frankly, another reason that we went to the Bayfront. We would like to be able to feature Erie as the postcard of this whole thing. I mean, it's such a beautiful place, and I think Erie is underrated when it comes to people from Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Buffalo. They drive by on 90 and they have no idea.
Right.
Just have no idea.
So so there's definitely a little tourism, a little putting our best foot forward, a little Chamber of Commerce moment in this whole thing, right?
Right. I mean, we like to feature our campus. We're going to feature our campus the night before. So the 8th is actually a pre-event social where people can come and meet the speakers, interact on really a casual basis with the speakers and sponsors. And that will highlight our campus because that'll be at our Metzger Alumni Center. And that's kind of, you come up Jordan Road to come to campus, it's one of the first buildings you're going to see. So that'll be that Wednesday night, the 8th, before the actual conference.
All right, so the theme is the secession. And again, that seems to be, especially in the moment that we live in, kind of the big overwhelming I don't want to say fear, but the what's on top of people's minds when they're running these family businesses is, do I have someone to give this to or to bring up beside us? Heck, I think just as a rabbit trail for a second, I think there's a lot of other organizations that are scratching their heads too, Chris. I mean, nonprofits were, the not even the founder, but the guy that's been or gal that's been running it forever. They want to retire, and there's like nobody back there,
right. Right. So it's one of those kick the can moments that a lot of people just choose to kick the can down the road because it's difficult to deal with now. What we try to convince people is this is a conversation that's so much easier to have before it's a problem. And, it's just there's so many things pulling the attention of business owners, whether they're a family business, a nonprofit leader, or a traditional business. There's so many things that are pulling their attention away. They've got tasks to do. They've got customer needs to meet. They've got products to design. They've got distribution agreements to have. And do I really want to talk about whether or not there's someone to take over for me? I don't plan on going anywhere, so it's not a problem yet. Until it is. Yeah. So I'll tell you my wife's story. So one of the things that got me into this was my wife's mother died. And so my wife became the de facto owner of the business her father started. Now, her father had died 6 years before. Now, he was a traditional entrepreneur. He was the ideas guy. Did a great job creating ideas, creating a business. It was a small machine shop in Ohio, had 26 employees. He was a great person by all accounts. I never met him. He died before I met my wife. And from all accounts, he was a great guy. But he was not an astute business guy necessarily. He trusted a lot of people to give him advice. And one of the things he did was he created a trust where both my wife and her brother were the beneficiaries of the trust. And I thought that was smart. That was really smart. But he never, ever talked to them about what the plans were. If something happened to him, what did he want to have take over? Well, then he died, and his wife, my mother-in-law, took over. She was a school teacher, mostly living in Florida. So she hired people to run the business. Again, not front of mind. She never thought about, okay, well, I'm gone. What happens to the business if I have to leave it to my two kids, my wife and her brother? No conversations ever had. My wife is a school teacher. Her brother is also a school teacher, also lives in Canada. So at this time, you're sitting there, it's not a problem until she unexpectedly dies. Wow. And now my wife is the trustee of the trust. And brother is saying, well, Dad always wanted us to do this. My wife is saying he never had that conversation with me. Well, he never had a conversation with the brother either. Nothing was written down. Nothing was planned. And Long story short, they ended up just having this. She sold out to her brother, and they don't really talk because of this whole experience. And it's one of those things you go back to. Had the dad had the conversation, he thought he was doing the right thing. He had in things in trust, but he never had the conversation with his kids about what he would want to have happen. They might have said, my wife would have said, I don't want anything to do with this.
Right.
And her brother might have said, I want everything to do with this. Cool, let's make arrangements for that. But when you have no one alive anymore and there's no paper trail, then it really creates a whole lot of problems. And I go back to what I said earlier.
And that's a pretty 26 employees. That's a substantial enterprise.
Especially in the small town where it was. It had an impact in that small town. So if that business went away, that's 26 families that are going to be affected, plus, clients, customers, where they're going to get the supplies from in the future. I mean, a lot of our clients have less than those employees. A lot of our members have less than those employees. So we're really, really passionate about have these conversations sooner. It's never going to get less comfortable. It's never going to get more comfortable to do this. It's never going to get better if you wait. Waiting is never, ever the right answer. So it goes back to, why did we create this conference? Well, the conference is the lubrication for the conversation. You get someone else who's been there, done that, rather than some professor in a academic center saying, hey, you really need to have this conversation. And it's sure, Chris, whatever. But if you talk to someone like Gutman from Gutman Energy, Joe Luco, who's going to be one of our keynote speakers, says, here's what we did. Here's the things that we went through. That means an awful lot more.
It's astounding. Do you have a sense of is there a too young? I'm thinking of some of these millennial entrepreneurs that their family businesses are starting to get pretty burgeoning. They're growing. I mean, is this for them at that young age?
I don't think there's too young an age. As long as you can comprehend, you're not too young. So, for example, you went to this earlier. A traditional business needs to think about succession. So I want to make this clear. This family business conference is not beneficial just for family businesses. It's in the context of a family business, but family business has to operate like any other business. It's just that if you want to keep it a family business, there's certain things that you can do for succession. But if you're not a family business, there's other things you can do for succession, right? Hire someone. That goes back to, do I have a board to help advise me with that? But for your comment about the young millennials that are creating businesses, if they want what they're doing to create a legacy to be last longer than they do, the earlier they have that conversation, the better. We don't know when we're going to cross the street on the wrong day, and now someone has to replace you. I mean, I hate to be morbid about that, but there's any number of things that can take leadership out of that position.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, again, that the typical board of a nonprofit, even, and they've got the elderly CEO, and some of the board members don't want to upset the apple cart. Other board members are saying, we've got to deal with this issue that's right in front of us. And it sounds like you can learn a lot from this. Sometimes
with the nonprofit board, it's even more difficult because, you've got people on the board that are passionate about doing things. And they often are resistant to making a change, where you need to kind of have some influx of new bodies and new ideas.
There's no doubt. Dr. Christopher Harben is with us here. We're talking about the upcoming Family Business Conference through the Penn State Behrend Center for Family Business. Back after the news. We're talking about the family business. And I think Michael told his wife, don't ask me about my business. Well, we're asking Dr. Christopher Harben about family business here on the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here. The upcoming Family Business Conference is happening October 8th and 9th. It will start at Penn State Behrend for a get-together, and then on the 9th, all-day-long sessions at the Bayfront Convention Center. And Dr. Harben, let's jump in on some of these amazing folks that you're bringing in here as keynotes under the theme of the succession.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that has become a growing topic, and we talked about it last year at our conference last year, because we have people that have experienced transitioning to an ESOP. Now that no longer
employee stock
ownership program. Right.
Okay.
So what happens is a company, a family business, then sells its business to the employees. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So technically an ESOP is no longer a family business, but the option for that family allows them to maintain the culture, the heritage, and keeps that company in that location. So I think it's one of those things we think is a viable option for companies to think about, and rather than just selling out. So especially if you have interested employees, there's a lot of advisors out there that will help kind of walk through this. We've had some experience here in town. So Gutman Energy might be it's a Pennsylvania company. Someone might be familiar with it. It actually used to be several different companies. I think it was Gutman Energy, Gutman Renewables, Source One Transportation. It had been a 92-year-old family-run business, and the family got to a point where they're saying, we can't do this anymore. We're running out of expertise. We're running out of bodies. So what they did was they transferred everything over to an ESOP. So now it continues to exist under one holding company, which is now Gutman Holdings, and we're going to have the CEO, the person that really kind of led the change. He was a CFO at the time. His name is Joe Luco. And he'll be there to talk. He's going to be our opening keynote speaker. And actually, we're very thankful for Gutman. I don't mean to sound like this is a commercial, but when you have sponsors, it's nice to be recognized them. But they stepped up to be kind of the named sponsor for the conference, which helps us. It helps us keep costs down. We're going to have a lot of students that are going to be able to participate for a very low charge, if anything, and faculty are going to be there. So, and that's one of the benefits of having it in October as well. The transition, and I think the value of hearing Joe talk is to get real life experience of what's it like to actually do this. What did the employees say? What were the good and the bad and the ugly things about this? Because there's no silver bullet. There's nothing that's just perfect to say, this is the right thing for every business to consider. It's not. I mean,
do the employees on an ESOP actually put skin in the game themselves? Like, do they pay for shares? I'm sure there's multiple models, right?
Well, I mean, they're not taking cash out of their pockets.
Okay.
Right. And there's rules about when they can access it. What happens if they leave the company? Which is why we're bringing an expert. I'm not the ESOP expert, right?
Sure, yeah.
But if you'd like to learn more, come to the conference. You can hear it from the mouth of a CEO. Mm-hmm. I mean, again, this is one of those things where, although I'm a professor, I don't pretend to know everything. And I know very little, actually. Just ask my wife. But but with regard to ESOP, I know enough about this to know that it's a viable option where the family can get some revenue out. They can get some cash out. They can go and retire. If dad and mom want to retire and they want to travel, but all of their assets are tied up in the business and they have nowhere to take over the business, an ESOP is an interesting model. And by the way, what if they had kids and they want the kids to take over the business, but the kids don't have the money to pay mom and dad an income or any revenue to get out of it so that mom and dad can live a lifestyle that's now in retirement? ESOP becomes one of those options too.
So that's your first keynote there is about the ESOP. And then you're bringing in an actual attorney that kind of specializes in succession, right?
Yeah, Brad is really a triple threat. He's an attorney, he's an accountant, and he's an entrepreneur. So he's been there, done that in a lot of different ways. He's recognized, he's been quoted on Forbes, Money Magazine, all these different locations, and he's written a book called The Succession Solution. And it really is about addressing, again, what we talked about, having these conversations early, but he has examples, he has historical facts. He says, all right, here's some strategies you could do to do this. By the way, he's a Penn State grad. And also, by the way, the first 100 people to register get a free copy of his book. So there's books, opportunities for you to get a book and interact with him. Again, now you get someone that you would otherwise have to pay to hear these things. Like if you're going to go to an attorney, probably you're not going to get, advice from an attorney without being on a retainer or getting, billing him for billable hours, and same with an accountant. So here you have someone with both of those backgrounds. And don't get me wrong, we have a lot of accountants and attorneys that work with our family business members, and Brad's not competing with them. He's no longer doing that. He'll do advice for companies, but he'll say, go to your attorney, have this written up. Go to your accountant, have this written up. So it's a really nice kind of non-threatening way of being able to hear things you're supposed to be asking from an expert, an expert who's written a book and has been quoted all over the place. I think they're going to enjoy that because it's over lunchtime, so you're going to be able to have a nice meal and listen to Brad talk about his book and interact in a nice way.
It sounds like too that he'll give you some tools to ask your personal attorney or your business attorney, kind of maybe some of the tools that your wife probably wish she had, right? I mean, in telling that story.
Well, and what we hope the outcome is that people that come to this conference leave as better clients for the advisors they have, or they leave knowing they need an advisor somehow, because the reality of it is good business people know that there's not everything that they should be doing. If you started the business to be a landscape company and you really love mowing lawns, at some point you're not going to be the guy mowing the lawns because your role has changed. You need to be the guy selling the services or making the plans and hiring people. You get away from the lawn. Sometimes people need to be able to do that. Your time is much more valuable working in the business and have the advisors help you.
You also are planning a session that will just kind of highlight the Center for Family Business and your director there, Jacob Jones, and so on. Yeah.
So this is going to be a bit of a combo thing. So Jake will be able to talk about some of the things that we've sort of the year in review. Since Jake's been with us now just over a year, we've been much more active. We have at least one program a month, really more like 2 programs a month, and he's been doing real active work with the podcast that he does with Zach Wild from Edward Jones, and it's really cool podcast highlighting businesses and advisors. So the energy level, the amount of bang for the buck that our members get from being a member has grown significantly. We're also going to have both Dan Laughlin and Jake Banta kind of talking about what's going on in Harrisburg that might be impactful for family business as well. We think that's probably an important thing to have, is pay attention, because again, family businesses are always distracted by the things that they need to get done today, so they don't always have time to kind of think about what Harrisburg is thinking.
There's no doubt about it. Okay, moving to the afternoon here, talking about a keynote that you're facilitating.
Sherry is a friend of mine that I've known ever since we were in Leadership Hancock County. I was actually a presenter for Leadership Hancock County years ago. Hancock County has Findlay, Ohio in it. So if you know Findlay University, sure. The Hancock, the headquarters for Marathon Oil is there. Sherry is just dynamic, and I love her story. Her dad started this trucking business in 1960. She's only like the second woman to have to be appointed the president of the Trucking Association, and so people know Sherry Brumbaugh in the trucking industry. It's Garner Trucking. I guarantee if you've driven on 90 at all, you've seen their trucks. They're the black trucks with the big red lettering that says Garner on it. Occasionally you'll see a white truck, a white cab. I asked her about that the other day. She goes, during COVID, I couldn't get any trucks that were black. I had to take what I could. So she has those trucks. Here's the cool thing. So there's an organization that tracks the best places to drive. It's online if you want to look up best places to drive, and they rate the top places to drive. They're in the Hall of Fame. They're 3 years in a row in the Hall of Fame, which means to be in the Hall of Fame, you have had to have been in the top 10 for 9-10 years in a row.
Wow.
And they're multiple-year Hall of Fame trucking company. And again, you have a woman that's second generation in a CEO role of a trucking company that's traditionally not a woman's role. And there's all kinds of interesting stories that she can share. We're going to talk about how her and her dad worked this out, because she didn't grow up thinking, I want to run a trucking company. She had a completely different career, which is not unusual. It's not unusual for people like this to say, hey, look, all right, I'll come back. Mike Malley, the other one we'll talk about, has a similar story. But, Sherry was off doing her thing and came back to end up running a trucking company. And not just running it, but running it so well that it's a top place to drive.
It's amazing to think about, the sheer capital investment if you're running a trucking company. What it takes to insure those rigs, I mean,
I wouldn't want to.
Again, if our buddy Jim Berlin over here at Logistics Plus, a major organization, but he's purposely, now he's kind of expanding his acquisitions now, but he purposely tried to keep the amount of warehouses and trucks to a minimum. He was going to be mostly on the process, but inevitably you have to buy stuff. But again, that logistics business is just
It's
crazy.
not going away. Yeah, right.
And it's not going away.
Right. You can talk about how much you have to spend to have a truck, but the reality of it is if you don't spend, someone else will. I mean, nobody's ordering less on Amazon. There's not less container ships coming through the Panama Canal on any day. This is not going away. So there's such a huge demand for logistics that, the competition is great. You have to be a good trucking company to attract. People can make a really good living in this.
100%.
And one of the things I love about this story is it's not sexy. It's not a tech company. It's not Apple. A lot of us are tired of talking about those companies. This is just regular everyday stuff. But when you start realizing all the stuff that goes into the background, he knows. The Logistics Plus guy will be able to explain to you,
Yes.
It's a lot more complicated than you think, which is why they've grown so much, because they have they have to have their fingers in so many things. It's a great story, and it'd be worth your admission just to come hear Sherry and meet Sherry.
And then the sweet spot of the Family Business Conference is Mike Malley from Malley's Chocolates. Talk about that.
And he's got another story. So all four of our speakers bring something different to the table. If you're from Northeast Ohio, you know Malley's Chocolates. Now, I grew up in Lorain, Ohio, and I knew two chocolate companies, Malley's Chocolates and Pharaoh's Chocolates. Malley's did a huge bit of business with fundraising. They started off 100 and some years ago in Lakewood, Ohio. I think the founder had like $500 and started a candy company and lived in the background. Lived in the back apartment. Now they have like an 18,000 square foot facility right on 480. So if you're out by the airport, you've probably driven by it. There's like 3 pink silos, each one representing a different ingredient: sugar, cocoa, and I'm gonna forget the other one, but 18 locations. They do national stuff as well. And it's funny because when I was talking to Mike, he knows the chocolatiers here from Erie as well. Everyone knows each other. So it's when you're in that business, you're going to cross paths with all the people that you compete with. But they've gone through a transition as well. So he worked outside of the business. He wasn't in Malley's, and was asked to come back, and he owned it. He was one of the owners, one of the family owners, and they asked him to come back and be the CEO. And he has since transitioned away from CEO. He has a non-family member CEO of the company, and so he's now a chocolatier. But that message is another one that family businesses need to hear. You can be a family business. You can own the business and not run it. Right. If you don't have the skill set to run it, you can hire someone. I'll give a pitch for one of our board members or one of our original supporters. Tom Hoffman at Knox Law talks about this thing. He calls it the family private equity model, where basically It's a way for the family to own it, and then hire and have it run by a professional CEO, professional team. But that requires the family to recognize that maybe we're at a point where our skill sets are no longer sufficient to keep this company growing. And you may know this, I know this, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to kind of keep up.
That takes a remarkable amount of humility and focus to say, look, I'm an owner, but I'm going to stand by this guy or gal's decision-making process and his or her plan.
Well, like with my wife's situation, one of the recommendations that was made to her was, hey, look, you and your brother serve on the board. Let's create a board. We had 3 people that had some relationship with their father, but they all brought a different area of expertise, one in manufacturing, one in finance, one in HR, and then she and her brother would serve on the board, and they would hire a CEO to run the company. Again, it's a difficult conversation. It's a difficult conversation if you're waiting till the last minute and dad's already gone or mom's already gone to have that conversation. And you talk about it having humility. Again, this goes back to the purpose of the conference. If I say that, the business might take it one way. Maybe they'll be open to hearing about it. Okay, maybe Chris is right. But if they hear from people who've been there, done that, and have the scars, they're more open to hearing Mike Malley talk about that, sharing her experience. Brad sharing his experience with his clients, and Joe talking about what they've done. That's what's valuable about this conference.
We're talking about the Family Business Conference. You make the pitch for that owner, that family business participant to say, hey, I'm going to spend a day and a half learning in October here because it's more than just a seminar. It's the whole context, isn't it?
Right. So you want to make sure that you're choosing what you invest your day in wisely. So these speakers have been chosen wisely. So when you come there, you're not going to walk away thinking you wasted your day. You're taking a day away from those tasks that I keep talking, distract businesses from running the business. The reality of it is, if you don't re-energize yourself, those tasks tomorrow are going to be tougher. If you don't find ways to kind of anticipate what's coming down the road, you're going to be less prepared. This is about reloading your weapons when it comes to the business. You can't always reload them in your own boardroom. Sometimes you have to go out, and there's a reason that people have boards. There's a reason that people have advisors. So we're trying to make it easy for people to do this. One of the things we're doing differently than we did last year is people can purchase a whole table. So we've got the tables set up. And again, this is another benefit of doing this at the Bayfront. The facilities allow us to be a little bit more flexible than I could on my campus. They're half-moon tables with 6 positions, and no one's back is to the speaker.
Nice.
So there's nothing worse than going to a conference and sitting at a round table, and you're the last one in, and you got your back to the speaker. So a half-moon table, 6 people at a table, and the most economical way for you to participate is get a whole table. Otherwise, if you're a non-member, there's a price for each member. If you're a member, there's a reduced price for that. But the most economical way is to get a whole table. I have some businesses say, look, we have 4 people from our company. What do we do with the other 2 seats? Give them to a vendor, give them to family, give them away, use them to enhance relationships. And, it becomes a really good expense for them to be able to do this. Again, it's an opportunity to reload.
We'll leave it there. Dr. Christopher Harben. I mean, again, reloading, getting ready for these important kind of talk about crucial conversations that a company needs to have. The Family Business Conference through the Penn State Behrend Center for Family Business coming up here October 8th and 9th. The website, sir?
familybusiness.psu.edu. Family business, all one word, .psu.edu. And if you want to register, the easiest way, just email me, clh612@psu.edu. I'll send you a form, has all the pricing and options. Again, clh612@psu.edu for information.
I'll put it in the comments on
Awesome.
the videos. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, always good to see you, Joel.
You got it here. Dr. Christopher Harben here. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Stay with us.